The arrival dark clouds rolled over the night sky, hiding the stars. Far above the earth, a small silver ship cut through the atmosphere. Inside, two young alien sisters sat in chains. Lyra, the older one, had sharp green eyes and a scar across her cheek. Saren, the younger, had softer features, but a gaze just as strong. Both wore the black armor of their homeworld, now damaged and scratched. They had once been respected warriors. Now, they were prisoners. The cold voice of the guard echoed in the metal room. You will never return home. Your crime is unforgivable. The Emperor's punishment is exile. To Earth, neither sister replied. They knew speaking would change nothing. Their homeworld had no mercy. They had disobeyed an order in order to destroy an innocent Kalanian for that. They had been labeled traitors. The ship shook violently as it entered the planet's atmosphere. Heat burned the hull, red light flashing through the small window. A warning siren screamed, then dash impact. The ship slammed into a forest with a deafening crash. Trees snapped. Soil flew into the air. Metal tore apart. Smoke and fire filled the wreck. Lyra groaned, pushing a heavy beam off her shoulder. Her chains were broken from the impact. Saren coughed, her eyes stinging from the smoke. They stumbled out of the ship, stepping onto the soft earth. The air smelled different here, fresh, with a hint of rain. For a moment, the forest was quiet. Then, faint voices. Human voices. Lyra tensed, her warrior instincts sharp. We're not alone, she whispered. Through the trees, a dim light moved like a lantern. Two figures appeared, an old man holding a flashlight and a teenage girl. Beside him, the humans froze when they saw the sisters. The old man's eyes widened. Good Lord, what happened to you? Lyra didn't answer. Her first thought was to fight or run. Back on her world, strangers often meant danger. But these humans, their faces showed no hate, no greed, only concern. Saren's voice was weak. We need help. The man didn't hesitate. Come on, both of you. It's not safe out here. They led the sisters to a small farmhouse at the edge of the forest. The home was warm, smelling of bread and wood smoke. The girl brought blankets, wrapping them around the shivering aliens. Lyra kept her eyes on the door, still ready for trouble. Saren, though, looked around with quiet wonder. She had never seen a home like this. No soldiers, no weapons, just peace. The man gave them water and bread. They ate in silence, unsure if they could trust this kindness. Then, outside, the distant sound of engines broke the calm. Lyra's heart tightened. She knew that sound smelled alien scout ships. The man noticed her tense expression. What is it? We're being hunted, Lyra said simply. The teenage girl's eyes widened. Hunted by who? Before Lyra could answer, Saren's gaze shifted to the corner of the room. There, half hidden under a broken piece of metal from there. Ship, a small black device blinked with a red light. A tracker. Lyra cursed under her breath. The crash hadn't destroyed it. Whoever had sent them here now knew exactly where they were. Outside, the engines grew louder. A beam of light swept across the forest. The sisters exchanged a glance, one that carried years of silent understanding. They were out of time. Lyra stood, her voice firm. We have to leave. Now? The old man looked at them with worry. You're hurt. You can't just run out there. If we stay, you'll all be in danger, Saren said softly. The girl stepped forward, her voice small but steady. Then let us help you. Lyra hesitated. Back home, she had learned never to trust anyone outside her own blood. But here, in this strange place, these humans were risking themselves for two strangers. It made no sense, and yet, before she could decide, a sharp blast of light tore through the trees, striking the ground near the farmhouse. The windows rattled. The air smelled of burning metal. The hunters had arrived. The strange kindness, the beam of light, faded, leaving a smoking hole in the earth just outside the farmhouse. The smell of burnt grass filled the air. Somewhere beyond the trees, metal. Footsteps crunched against the ground. Lyra moved to the window, her eyes narrowing. In the shadows, she saw dark shapes moving 3, maybe 4. They were tall, armored, their heads covered in black helmets. Alien bounty hunters. "They've found us," she said in a low voice. Siren's hands tightened around the blanket. "How did they track us so fast?" "The device," Lyra replied. "I should have destroyed it sooner." The old man, whose name they still didn't know, stepped toward them. "If they're after you, you can't stay here. I have an old truck." "No," Lyra interrupted sharply. "They'll follow." "Ah, and if they see you helping us?" She glanced toward the girl, who looked more frightened than ever. "You'll both be killed." The man's jaw tightened. "We don't abandon people here." "I won't start now." It was such a strange thing for Lyra to hear. On her homeworld, mercy was weakness. Strangers would sell you for a single credit. Yet this human, this farmer, was willing to risk everything for 2 unknown aliens who had crashed into his forest. She didn't have time to think about it. Outside, a voice echoed through a mechanical speaker. "Surrender the fugitives, and we will spare your lives." The words were calm, but Lyra knew they were a lie. The hunters never spared anyone. Saren looked at her sister. "We can't fight them. Not like this." Lyra's eyes flicked to the table. The humans had given them water and bread. They hadn't even asked who the sisters were. They had just helped. Maybe they could give something back. She turned to the man. "If we draw them away, can you hide your family?" He nodded without hesitation. "Then keep your lights off," Lyra said. "And no matter what happens, don't come after us." Before anyone could argue, she grabbed Siren's hand and slipped out the back door into the cold night. The forest closed around them, the moonlight breaking through in small silver patches. The bounty hunters' voices grew closer. "Split up," one ordered. "They can't have gone far." Lyra moved quickly, keeping low, leading Siren deeper into the woods. But the hunters were faster here on Earth. The sisters' powers were weakened. They could no longer leap great distances or cloak themselves in shadows. A branch snapped behind them. "Run," Lyra hissed. They darted through the trees until they reached a small creek. Saren splashed through the water, hoping to hide there. Scent. Lyra followed, scanning the tree line for movement. But the hunters were clever. From the left, a beam of blue light streaked past, striking the ground near Saren's feet. She stumbled, nearly falling. Lyra pulled her up, her heart pounding. They kept moving until the sound of engines faded in the distance. Finally, they stopped, breathing hard. Saren looked back toward where the farmhouse would be. "Hello, do you think they'll be safe?" Lyra didn't answer right away. In her mind, she saw the old man's face, calm and steady, even when danger stood outside his door. She had seen generals break under less pressure, but this human, he had stood firm. "I don't know," she admitted, "but we'll make sure of it." The night air was cold, and the sisters' armor was torn from the crash. They needed shelter, but they couldn't go back, not yet. They followed the creek until they found an abandoned barn on the edge of a field. Inside, the air smelled of dust and old hay. It wasn't much, but it was dry. They sat in the corner, their backs against the wall. For a long moment, neither spoke. Finally, Saren said quietly, "Why were they kind to us?" Lyra looked at her sister. "Maybe not every world is like ours." Saren's voice was even softer. "Then, maybe we don't have to be like we were, either." Lyra didn't respond, but the thought stayed with her. Somewhere far away, the bounty hunters were regrouping. They would not stop until the sisters were captured or dead. But for the first time since their exile began, Lyra felt something she hadn't expected. Not hope, exactly, but something close to it, and that made her more dangerous than ever. The hunter's morning came slowly over the countryside. Thin mist hung over the fields, and the smell of wet earth filled the air. In the abandoned barn, Lyra was already awake, sitting by the broken door, watching the pale light spread across the horizon. Siren slept beside her, shivering under an old blanket they had found in a dusty corner. The night's events played over and over in Lyra's mind. The beam of light, the bounty hunters' cold voices, the humans' unexpected kindness. Every instinct told her to keep moving, to trust no one. But a part of her, a small part, wanted to believe the humans might truly care. She pushed the thought away. Caring got you killed. A sound broke the silence, the low hum of an engine. Not from the sky this time. From the road. Lyra tensed and shook Siren awake. "They're here," she whispered. The sisters slipped out of the barn and crouched low behind a pile of hay. A black vehicle rolled slowly along the dirt road, its windows tinted. From the back, two figures stepped out. They were not human. Their tall frames, dark armor, and helmeted heads made them unmistakable. Bounty hunters. One of them tapped a device. On his wrist, a thin blue hologram flickered into the air, showing two moving red dots, Lyra and Siren's heat signatures. "They're close." The hunter's voice rasped through his helmet. The sisters exchanged a quick look. They had only seconds before they were found. The chase begins, they bolted, keeping low through the tall grass. The hunters shouted something in their own language, and a beam of energy shot past Lyra's head, burning the air. Siren's breath came fast. "They won't stop." "They never do," Lyra replied, her voice steady even as her heart pounded. The sisters reached the edge of a small town, a handful of shops, a dusty street, and people just starting their day. They slowed their pace, blending into the crowd as best they could. But it didn't work. The hunters strode into the street, their height and armor making them impossible to miss. People gasped and moved out of the way. The hunters scanned the crowd, their helmets turning sharply. Lyra pulled Siren into a narrow alley. "We need to split, make them chase one of us." "No," Siren grabbed her arm. "I'm not leaving you." Lyra looked into her sister's eyes and saw the same stubbornness that had gotten them both exiled. She almost smiled. "Then stay." Close. Help from a stranger, they ran through the alley, but one hunter spotted them. His heavy boots pounded the ground behind them. They turned a corner only to find the second hunter blocking their path. Trapped, the first hunter raised his weapon. A sharp hum filled the air, and then smash. A blur of movement came from the side. A teenage boy on an old motorbike slammed into the hunter, knocking him back. "Get on," he shouted. Lyra hesitated only for a moment before helping Siren onto the bike. The boy twisted the throttle, and the engine roared as they sped away. Blaster fire lit up the street behind them, striking walls and shattering glass. People screamed and ducked for cover. "Who are you?" Siren yelled over the wind. "Name's Adam." The boy shouted. "Figured you two needed help." Close escape, the bike tore through the narrow streets, turning sharply into another alley. The hunters followed on foot, their speed unnerving for their size. One of them leaped, landing on the back of the bike. His armored hand grabbed Lyra's shoulder without thinking. Lyra spun and drove her elbow into the hunter's helmet, then shoved hard. He tumbled onto the road, rolling until he hit a wall. Adam didn't slow down until they reached the edge of town. They burst onto an open dirt road leading toward the forest. Finally, when the sound of pursuit faded, Adam stopped. The sisters jumped off the bike, breathing hard. "Why?" Lyra asked. "Why risk yourself for us?" Adam shrugged, still catching his breath. "Because you were in trouble. And I saw what those things looked like. They're not here to talk." Lyra studied him for a long moment. He was just a human teenager. No armor. No weapons. And yet, he had stood between them and death without a second thought. Saren gave a small smile. "Thank you," Adam nodded. "Come on. I know a place to hide." The silent watcher, they followed him through a winding path until they reached an old storage shed. Inside, it smelled of oil and dust, but it was safe for now. Lyra leaned against the wall, thinking about the humans she had met in less than a day. First, the farmer and his daughter, now Adam. None of them owed the sisters anything. Yet all had risked themselves. Back on her homeworld, this kind of behavior was unthinkable. Saren sat down beside her. "They're different here." Lyra didn't answer. She was staring out the small window toward the trees. A shadow moved between the branches. Someone was watching them. Not a hunter. Not human either. Asterisk. The choice the forest was still. Even the wind seemed to hold its breath. Lyra's eyes stayed locked on the shadow in the trees. Slowly, the figure stepped forward. It was taller than a human, but leaner than the armored bounty hunters. Its skin was pale silver, its eyes a faint blue glow. Across its forehead was a dark mark, a jagged stripe shaped like lightning. Saren froze when she saw it. "That's impossible." Lyra's voice was low and sharp. "No, it's him." The figure smiled faintly, as if hearing them. "Lyra, Saren. It's been a long time." Adam looked between them, confused. "You know him?" "He's not a friend," Lyra said quickly. "He's worse." The silver-skinned alien stepped closer. "You wound me, old comrade." "After all, I came to offer you something." Lyra took a step forward, placing herself between Saren and the stranger. "You should have stayed in the sky where you belong." The alien tilted his head, ignoring the threat. "The bounty hunters? They answered to me now. I can call them off. I can give you freedom. All I ask in return." His glowing eyes moved to Adam. "Is the human boy?" Adam stiffened. "Wait, what?" Saren's voice was shaking now. "Why? Why would you want him?" The alien's faint smile never faded. "Because he matters more than you realize. His life, his choices. They will ripple across this planet. My employers want him removed before that happens." The offer for a moment, silence filled the shed. Lyra's heart pounded in her chest. This was a chance to end the chase, to be free. All they had to do was give up a boy they had met only hours ago. The old Lyratha, one from their warlike homeworld, would have taken the deal without hesitation. Survival came first. Everything else was weakness. But now, she remembered the farmer's calm defiance, the girl's fear but refusal to run, Adam's reckless courage when he drove his bike into a bounty hunter. Something in her had changed. "No," Lyra said. The alien raised an eyebrow. "No, you heard me. We don't trade lives." The faint smile faded from his face. "Then you've made your choice." The threat grows. The alien stepped back into the shadows. His voice carried through the trees. "By dawn, this entire town will be ash. You could have stopped it. Instead, you choose sentiment over survival. So be it." And then he was gone. The forest swallowed him whole. Adam looked at the sisters, pale. "He's not bluffing, is he?" Lyra shook her head. "No. If he says it, it will happen." Saren turned to her sister. "Then we have to warn the town. Warn them." "And do what?" Lyra asked. "We have no weapons, no ship. Our powers are almost gone here. Then we fight with what we have, Saren said. Her voice was soft but steady. Because if we run, they all die. The human choice, they hurried back toward town under the cover of darkness. Adam led the way, using paths only locals knew. The sisters moved like shadows behind him, their senses sharp for any sign of movement. When they reached the edge of the town, the streets were quiet. Lights glowed in windows. People were inside, eating dinner, watching TV, living ordinary lives completely unaware that death was coming for them. Adam stopped outside the farmer's house. The old man answered the door quickly, relief on his face. "You're alive." The relief faded as he saw their expressions. "We don't have much time," Lyra said. "You need to get everyone out of town before sunrise." The farmer frowned. "Why? What's coming?" War, Saren answered simply. The gathering storm. The farmer called the local sheriff. Word spread faster than Lyra expected. Soon, people were out in the street, asking questions, some angry, some frightened. "They won't believe the truth," Adam whispered. "If you tell them aliens are coming, they'll think you're insane." Lyra looked at him. "Then they'll believe when they see it. And by then, it may be too late." A low rumble rolled across the night. Not thunder engines, big ones. Lyra's stomach dropped. She recognized the sound. Dropships, at least 3. She looked at Saren. No words were needed. Both sisters knew the truth. The enemy wasn't coming for just them anymore. The betrayal. The dropships landed like metal beasts, crushing the asphalt beneath their weight. The air filled with the hiss of steam vents and the heavy thud of armored boots hitting the ground. Lyra watched from the shadow of a building, her pulse steady, but her thoughts racing. Saren crouched beside her, gripping a length of pipe she had taken from the farmer's shed. It was hardly a weapon against alien armor, but it was better than empty hands. The silver-marked alien led the way, his glowing eyes scanning the street. Behind him, a squad of bounty hunters fanned out, their rifles humming with deadly energy. From their hiding place, the sisters could hear the shouts of townspeople. Confusion, fear, doors slamming, children crying. Adam whispered, "We need to move, get everyone out before they surround the place." Lyra nodded, but kept her eyes on the hunters. Something felt wrong. The way they moved. It was too slow, too measured. Like they already knew where their targets were. Her suspicion was confirmed when the silver-marked alien stopped in front of a small grocery store. He didn't scan, didn't search. He simply pointed to the back door. 2 hunters kicked it open. Moments later, it dragged out the farmer, the same man who had first given the sisters shelter. His hands were tied, his face bruised. Saren's eyes widened. How did they find him? The answer came in the form of another figure stepping into the light. It was the sheriff. The sheriff's secret. The man's badge gleamed under the dropship's lights, but his eyes were cold, calculating. He spoke in the hunter's language, his words quick and sharp. Lyra caught only fragments enough to know he was giving them information. "He betrayed us." Saren whispered, disbelief in her voice. Lyra's jaw tightened. "No, he betrayed them all." The silver-marked alien smiled faintly, clapping the sheriff on the shoulder as if he were an old friend. Then he turned to the farmer. "Where are the sisters?" he asked in his chilling, measured tone. The farmer spat at his feet. "You'll get nothing from me." The alien's smile never faltered. "Then you'll die with the rest." The trap tightens. The bounty hunters began herding the townspeople toward the center of the street. The sheriff barked orders, telling people it was for their safety, but the lie was thin. Adam's fists clenched. "We can't just stand here." Lyra scanned the rooftops, the streets, the enemy positions. "No, we can't, but we need to hit them where it hurts, sand fast." Saren's gaze stayed on the farmer. We have to get him out first. Lyra hesitated. Saving one man might cost them the whole town. But she remembered his calm voice in the farmhouse. The way he had stepped between them and danger without hesitation. She made her choice. The silent rescue, they moved through the back alleys, keeping to the dark. Every shadow felt alive. Every creak of wood a possible alarm. From behind a barrel, Lyra counted the guards near the farmer to bounty hunters, both alert. Distraction, Lyra whispered. Adam, can you make one? Adam grinned. Faintly, thought you'd never ask. A moment later, the sound of shattering glass rang out from the far side of the street. One hunter turned instantly, the other a second later. Lyra moved like lightning, slamming her shoulder into the first guard and grabbing the farmer's arm. Saren followed, swinging the pipe hard into the second guard's knee. The alien roared. In pain, stumbling. Move, Lyra ordered. They ducked into the shadows again, pulling the farmer with them. Adam appeared a moment later, breathing hard but smiling. That should buy us 30 seconds. The price of betrayal back in the open. The sheriff realized the farmer was gone. His face twisted with rage as he shouted to the hunters. The silver-marked alien said nothing he didn't need to. His glowing eyes followed the shadows, searching. But the sisters were already gone. They regrouped in an abandoned mechanic shop on the edge of town. The farmer coughed, wincing from his bruises, but he was alive. Why did he do it? Saren asked quietly. Why would the sheriff help them? The farmer's voice was low, bitter. Some men don't need a reason. Power's enough. And the hunters, they probably promised him more than he's ever had in his life. Lyra thought about that as she stared out the cracked window toward the dropships. The sheriff had given the enemy an advantage. And now, the whole town might pay the price. The final blow before dawn, a distant roar filled the air. Lyra looked up to see another dropship descending, this one larger, heavier. Its shape was unmistakable. A command ship. Saren's face went pale. They're bringing in the general. Lyra's hands tightened into fists. The general, the one who had ordered them to burn the colony, the one who had branded them traitors, and now he was here. *** love or revenge. The general's voice was like cold metal scraping against stone. His armored boots crunched over broken glass as he stepped forward. The black plating of his suit gleaming under the dropship's lights. Lyra felt a shiver run through her, not from fear, but from memory. This was the man who had sentenced her and Saren to exile. The one who had looked into her eyes and called her a traitor. The one who had ordered her to destroy an innocent colony, and then punished her for refusing. Saren's breath caught beside her. Lyra, it's him. I know, Lyra said, her voice tight. The general stopped in the center of the street, flanked by two of his largest bounty hunters, the silver-marked. Alien stood behind him like a shadow. I'll make this simple, the general called out. His voice carried easily through the still night. Come to me now, and I will let this pathetic human town live. Adam muttered under his breath, he's... Lyra's eyes stayed locked on the general. I know. The farmer, leaning against the wall from his injuries, looked at her. Then, what's the plan? Lyra didn't answer right away. Her mind was a battlefield of its own. One part of her wanted to step into the open, to face the general, to take the revenge she had dreamed of every day since exile, to make him pay for the lives he had taken and the years he had stolen from her and Saren. But another part, the part she barely recognized, wanted something else, wanted the humans safe, wanted to keep the warmth she had found here alive. The pull of the past Saren touched her sister's arm gently. If we fight him, they'll come after the town. You know that? Lyra's jaw tightened. If we don't fight him, he'll take us. And when we're gone, who will protect them? From outside, the general spoke again. "You have until sunrise. Choose exile in chains, or choose death. Either way, I win." The bounty hunters laughed coldly. The sound echoed through the quiet. Streets like the hiss of snakes. Adam looked at the sisters. "You're not alone. We'll fight with you." Lyra's eyes narrowed. "Against an army?" "Against anyone," Adam said simply. Saren almost smiled at that, but the weight of what was coming pulled it away. "If we fight, someone will die." Lyra didn't respond. She already knew that was true. The human answer they gathered in. The old mechanic's shop, maps of the town spread across the workbench. Adam pointed to the narrow streets where they could set traps. The farmer suggested choke points where the hunters' numbers wouldn't matter. "These are soldiers," Lyra warned. "They will expect traps. They will adapt fast. Then?" "We hit them where they don't expect," Adam said. "Not with weapons, with people. We know this town better than they do." Lyra studied him for a moment. His face was young, but his eyes held the same fire she had seen in warriors twice. His age. She didn't understand why humans fought for others when they had so much to lose. But she was beginning to admire it. Finally, she said, "We fight, but not for revenge." Siren looked at her, surprised. "We fight," Lyra repeated. "For them." The last hours before dawn, they moved quickly, working through the night. Doors were locked, windows boarded. Hidden escape routes were prepared for the children and the elderly. Oil drums and crates were rolled into the streets to block the hunters. Approach. The farmer's daughter carried messages between groups, her small form slipping unseen through the dark alleys. Adam reinforced barricades with scrap metal. Helped a group of townsfolk rig a signal flare that would warn of the hunters' advance. Lyra kept watch from a rooftop, her eyes scanning the enemy's positions. The general's forces hadn't moved yet. They were waiting, letting the fear sink in. From up there, under the pale moonlight, she could see the whole town. It wasn't much. Just a cluster of buildings, a few dirt roads surrounded by fields and forest. But it was more of a home than she had ever had, and she wasn't about to let it burn. The promise when she climbed down. Saren was waiting for her. "Are you sure about this?" she asked quietly. Lyra met her gaze. "If I kill him, I win a war from our past. But if we protect them, we win something bigger." Sarah nodded slowly, understanding. Love over revenge. Lyra's lips curved into the faintest smile. Exactly. Outside, in the distance, the first pale light of dawn touched the horizon. The general's voice rang out. Ghent cold, sharp, and final, time's up. The final stand, the first light of dawn, crept over the rooftops, painting the sky with pale gold and soft pink. But in the streets of the small human town, there was no peace, only the heavy rumble of approaching boots and the sharp hum of alien weapons warming up. Lyra stood in the center of the main road, her armor cracked and dented, her blade gripped tight in her hands. Siren stood at her side, pipe in one hand, a stolen hunter's blaster in the other. Around them, townspeople took their positions behind barricades of crates, wagons, and overturned cars. The general advanced at the head of his army, the black plates of his armor catching the new sunlight. The silver-marked alien walked beside him, a cruel smile on his face. Behind them, the bounty hunters marched in perfect lines, rifles aimed forward. "You could have walked away," the general called. "You could have saved yourselves." Lyra's voice was steady. "We're not here to save ourselves." The general tilted his head. "Then you'll die for these creatures." Lyra's eyes burned. "We'll live for them." The first clash. The general gave a sharp signal, and the hunters surged forward. The townsfolk unleashed everything they had: flames from improvised firebombs, slingshots with sharpened scrap metal, smoke from burning hay bales to block the hunters' vision. Adam darted between barricades, drawing fire and luring hunters into narrow alleys where townsfolk waited with ropes and nets. The farmer fired an old shotgun from the rooftop, forcing hunters to take cover. Lyra and Saren charged straight into the front line. Lyra's blade flashed, cutting through a hunter's weapon before he could fire. Saren's blaster roared, striking. Another in the chest and sending him sprawling. The hunters were stronger. Faster, but the sisters fought like lightning, every move sharp, precise, unyielding. The general enters the fight. The general didn't wait long. With a single leap, he landed in front of Lyra, his heavy boots cracking the pavement. He swung his massive weapon, and the force of the blow nearly knocked her off her feet. "You should have taken my offer," he growled. Lyra blocked his second strike, the impact ringing through her arms. "And you should have left this planet alone." Their fight became a blur of steel and fire, her speed against his power. Sparks flew as blade met blade. Saren tried to move in to help, but the silver-marked alien intercepted her, grinning, as he drew two curved knives. "You'll regret this," he hissed. Saren fired, forcing him back. Not today. Turning the tide for every hunter that fell, two more seemed to take their place. The townsfolk were brave, but their barricades began to break under the relentless assault. Smoke filled the streets, and the cries of battle mixed with the deep thud of hunter rifles. The farmer's daughter ran up to Lyra in the middle of the chaos. "They're breaking through the west side." Lyra's mind raced. If the hunters flanked them, the whole defense would collapse. She shouted to Adam, who immediately grabbed a group of townsfolk and ran to reinforce the barricade. The general saw the shift and pressed harder, his strikes growing faster, heavier. "You can't win," he snarled. Lyra met his blow and shoved him back. "Maybe not, but I can make sure you lose." The moment of decision, finally, she saw an opening. One quick strike, and she could drive her blade through the weak point in his armor, ending him. The revenge she had dreamed of for years was within her grasp, but behind him, she saw Adam struggling against a hunter twice his size. She saw Saren fighting to protect the farmer. She saw the townsfolk she had sworn to defend, killing the general. Would win her vengeance, but it would cost them their lives. Her grip tightened on the blade, and she stepped back. The general blinked, confused. "What are you doing?" "Choosing," Lyra said. "And not you." She turned her strike, smashing the ground beside them instead. The impact triggered the hidden oil drums they had planted earlier, sending a wave of fire between the hunters and the townspeople. The final push, the sudden wall of flames, gave the defenders their chance. Saren shouted for everyone to fall back to the main barricade. Adam pulled the wounded to safety. Kanta stumbled in the smoke, their lines broken. Lyra and Saren moved together, driving the enemy back step by step. The general roared in frustration, retreating under covering fire from his remaining troops. Finally, with a sharp whistle, the silver-marked alien called for evacuation. The hunters began to pull out, dragging the wounded back to the dropships. The engines roared, and one by one, the alien ships lifted into the morning sky. Aftermath Street was quiet again. Smoke rose in thin curls. The townsfolk slowly emerged from cover, some cheering, some crying, all alive. Adam walked up to Lyra, dirt on his face, but a grin in his eyes. "You did it." Lyra shook her head. "We all did it." The farmer stepped forward. "What now?" Lyra looked at Saren. Her sister's gaze was steady, calm. "Now, we stay." Saren smiled. "Home." The sun broke fully over the horizon, its light warm on their faces. And for the first time in years, Lyra felt truly free, not because she had escaped her enemies, but because she had chosen something greater than herself. The return of shadows. The battle was over, but the air still smelled of smoke and scorched metal. The streets were littered with the remains of alien weapons, cracked armor, and the black scorch marks of blaster fire. Lyra stood on the roof of the old mechanic's shop, watching the sun climb higher into the sky. Her armor was scratched, her blade dull from the fight, but her eyes were sharp. She wasn't celebrating. Saren climbed up beside her. "You've been up here for hours." "Because they're not finished," Lyra said quietly. "The general didn't die today. That means he'll come back. And next time, he'll bring more." Saren was silent for a moment. "We can't live like this forever, waiting for the next attack." "No," Lyra agreed, "which means we have to be ready before it comes." A town transformed down below. The once quiet town was a different place. The people who had hidden behind locked doors now worked side by side, repairing barricades, reinforcing buildings, and salvaging alien tech from the battlefield. Adam had taken charge of modifying the bounty hunters' weapons into something the humans could use. The farmer's daughter carried food and water between work crews. Even the sheriff's old office had been turned into a command center, though the sheriff himself was gone, vanished into the forest after the battle. Saren watched them work. "They're stronger than I thought." Lyra gave a small nod. "Humans always surprise you. That's why the Empire fears them." The message from the stars late that afternoon. Adam came running to the sisters, holding a small black device. "I think I found something in the wreckage of one of their comms units." Lyra took it, turning it over in her hands. The casing was cracked, but the signal light was still blinking faintly. She activated a hand. A ghostly blue hologram flickered. Into the air, it was the silver-marked alien. "Enjoy your little victory," his voice said, smooth and venomous. "The general will heal. The Empire will return. And when we do, there will be no mercy. Not for you. Not for your precious humans." The message ended, leaving only silence. Adam swallowed hard. "So, we just wait for them to come back?" "No," Lyra said firmly. "We go to them." The decision to leave that night in the farmer's kitchen. They gathered the core group: Lyra, Saren, Adam, the farmer, and a few trusted townsfolk. Lyra laid out a map she had drawn from memory, showing star systems far beyond Earth. "This is where they'll regroup," she explained, pointing to a cluster of red marks. "If we hit them first, we can keep them away from Earth, but it means leaving the planet for good." The farmer frowned. "And if you don't come back," Lyra didn't hesitate, "then at least they'll have more time." Saren looked at her sister. "You're sure about this?" Lyra met her eyes. "We came here as exiles. Now we leave as defenders. Farewell." For now, the next morning, the sisters stood at the edge of the forest, where their broken ship still lay half buried in the earth. With Adam's help and a week of scavenging, they had managed to repair enough of the systems to make it fly again barely. The townsfolk gathered to see them off. The farmer stepped forward, pressing a small leather pouch into Lyra's hand. "For luck," he said simply. Adam gave Saren a crooked grin. "Don't get yourself killed out there." Saren smiled faintly. "I'll try." The ship's engines roared to life, sending leaves swirling in the air. The shadows ahead as they lifted into the sky. The town grew smaller below them, the fields and roads fading into the morning haze. Lyra kept her gaze forward, on the stars. Somewhere out there, the general and the silver-marked alien were already planning their return. But this time, the sisters wouldn't be running. This time, they would bring the fight to the Empire itself. Saren, strapped in beside her. "You think we can win?" Lyra's lips curved into a determined smile. "No, I think we can make them afraid." The ship vanished into the clouds, leaving Earth behind, and somewhere in the darkness of space, the shadows were already moving.